Hello and welcome back to part 2 of this Tumbler build. I've made some progress since the last time, so I'm going to show you what I've got done so far, and then what we're going to do is do some time-lapse footage and show some more of the process as opposed to me just telling you what I've done. So firstly, if you recall last time, I didn't have all the windows cut out and these two pieces were not joined together yet. At this point, I do have the windows cut out. I've joined these together. I was actually able to use some of the clip pieces that came with this for closing it to clasp these together at the back here, which helped tremendously. And then I made a little bracket out of some pieces that came with this on the inside, and then drilled screws into them to hold it together here. And then I also have something on the inside in this piece holding this together. So the next thing in terms of joining these two is going to be to use some styrene to cover up these gaps here, and I'll probably glue and clamp these a bit to try to close the gap even more. It kind of is doing what it wants to do, so to an extent I am beholden to what this thing wants to do in certain cases, but I think it'll come together eventually. So, you know, this whole build is very much me just making it up as I go, because, you know, there's no manual for this kind of thing, so a lot of it's trial and error. You can see where I've cut out a lot of the stuff on the inside here. Pieces like this that had a bracket coming off that, you know, and like up here, these were a real pain. My Dremel tool did not want to slice through them super easily. I also cut out these fins. If you recall last time, these were like an actual block of molded plastic that came out like this all the way. So I cut all this stuff off. I need to sand it down and smooth it out, and then I'm going to be adding styrene panels to these to make like the spoilers that are on the vehicle itself. The next thing here is figuring out how to attach the wheels. I got the Batpod wheels off. This was tremendously difficult. Like these things were just in there. Like they were held together by these like metal rods, and so I essentially just had to like completely just absolutely decimate the pieces. I was hoping to save these and kind of use them for other stuff, you know, because usually I find some use for things, but yeah, I really just had to like break this thing and tear it apart. So but the end result is that I got the tires off, and these are gonna fit like this in here. Now, one cool thing, I have these pieces. These were left over from the center of the large wheels that came on this play set, right? So there was like a piece that went through here, and then these little screw caps like held them on, and these happen to be the exact perfect size to fit in these Batpod wheels. So what I'm gonna do is mount these in here by drilling holes on either side, and then use some wooden dowels, and then these will go straight through the wheel, and then I'm going to drill a hole in the tip and then screw that in, and those will hold them in place. For the bottom piece, so in the last video I talked about how I was going to keep the bottom half that came on the playset and actually just trim it so that it would be a lower profile. That just didn't end up working. It was still too tall and it just didn't look right. So I found that when I actually took off the bottom piece, we put the wheels in here and then had the big crawler tires in there, it was like just right. So I'm gonna be working with it like this and probably adding something to where it's not super, you know, doesn't look like a hollow piece. Another development was that I used a Batman vs Superman, one of these cheapy little Mattel Batmobiles that had like a turret gun type of thing right here. I got this for, you know, super cheap online, and it came with another Batmobile that I wanted to customize. So it ended up being, you know, kind of just like a little bonus piece. I removed the bottom from that. And so we have this piece that I removed, and then I used this because I need something to mount these back, you know, big crawler wheels on, right? And this ended up being the perfect height. And then this is a piece that I cut off of the bottom half of this playset and screwed them together. Now, again, this is all very like kind of haphazard. You know, I'm trying to keep it clean, but also, you know, use the parts that I have and think about what's going to be seen in the end. And, you know, like I said, I'm making this all up as I go, so there's going to be a lot of changing stuff on the fly. But this, when mounted to the bottom of this, ends up matching up pretty closely. And then what I did is I cut this hole, like I was saying in the last video, and I ended up cutting a piece here. And so this is going to be the like turbine jet thing for the tumbler. This was a bottle, I think it was a like coffee creamer. So with this here, and then I'm going to put, you know, panels on this to make it look more like the way that the engine looks in the movie. And, you know, I'll find some other pieces to use on there. So a lot of these things just kind of get found and made along the way. So I'm not too worried about not having the perfect solution for it yet, because I know I'll come up with something. I also have this other piece. This was the shape of essentially what the back piece looks like on the tumbler, and I'll insert a video or a photo of it here in the video. If I put this on here, you know, obviously I'll trim this part down, but I'll stick it on to where this comes out of this piece and is flush, and I think that's going to give it a nice finish. And of course this will all get painted, you know, so it'll all be black and when I get the final paint job going. So yeah, still a lot of pieces to figure out. I've got these wooden dowels of various sizes here. That's how I'm going to make the air struts that I mentioned that come on that are on the tumbler. You can see here, you know, these molded versions of them on this smaller Mattel piece. So I'll be making those and painting them. That's going to be a lot of fun to kind of paint them to match and whatnot. Another thing, one of the first things I'm going to do here is, do you see the difference between this piece that holds the front wheel on and this one in shape? If you look at this, you know, it goes flat here and then comes up. This one is much more of like an angular kind of thing. So while I want to keep this front piece, because this is hollow, so I don't want to trim here, otherwise it'll just be a hole. But I think what I am going to do is angle it like this, and then maybe come up in here a little bit, and just sort of, you know, mimic some of the cuts and things that are happening in here. And then when I layer on some styrene panels to kind of build this out a little bit more and give it a little bit more dimension, it'll be a lot closer. It's not going to be exact, and you know, I've made peace with that, because, you know, while you want to strive a lot of times to make it as exact as possible, you know, they changed the design for this toy because it needed to accommodate the insides. And so there's a lot of things that are just more detailed on this one that aren't on this. So I'll be doing my best to kind of bridge the gap between the two. And yeah, so next up it'll be more detailing, and I'll show footage of that and talk about what I'm doing as I do it. So here I'm using a pencil to make some marks for where I want to cut and trim this front end piece. I'm using a ruler to measure it so that I can make sure it's symmetrical, or at least as symmetrical as possible on both sides. And then I took a carpet knife and just slowly cut it away, and then ended up kind of ripping it off with some pliers, because this material, this plastic, is actually pretty tough stuff. You can see a couple of clips up top. That is where I actually end up gluing it together at that seam that I mentioned. Some CA glue, which is like a modeling glue that works really well, ended up being the key to getting that going pretty well. If you don't have any clips or clamps like that, I highly recommend getting some, because they make life a lot easier. Here I am drilling holes and using the dowels. I actually ended up having a couple of these like black lining sleeves that came with the bat pod itself that I was able to put over the dowels. Okay, this is my third attempt at doing this, because the first time my beard was scratching against the mic on my headphones. The second time my shirt was rubbing up against it. So now I've got it just kind of like off to the side, and hopefully nothing will interfere, because I don't want to make you all sit through that. So this thing has been a real challenge. I've got the front wheels on. You saw that in the video. And I think it's looking pretty good. It's not exactly how I wanted, because this thing comes out way farther on this than it does on the actual tumbler. And so, you know, it looks like it's touching here. I wanted them to be independent of this front piece, because, you know, it's a cool part of the design of the tumbler. But we're working with what we got, and all in all, I think it still works. So the real challenge of this build has been figuring out how to connect these huge ass tires and wheels to the back of this thing. I thought I had it, but things weren't working out. Things weren't lining up. You know, I've got this back piece that I had another piece mounted to, right? But it sits like too high up and doesn't accommodate these enough. And I didn't have any way to mount it. So then I took this other, you know, BVS Batmobile, which you saw, I stuck it to the bottom of this, it didn't look good, but it was kind of working, and then it just wasn't in the end. So this piece, which is part of this play set, this is what the actual big old plastic tires were mounted to. There was a piece that, they went on. There's a piece that screwed them in here. This pops out as well, so I was like, maybe I can adjust the height. But this is too far forward on the Tumbler. If these back pieces line up here, then the wheels would sit up in here like this. So not high enough. I probably have to trim this anyway. I don't want to, but I think it's just the shape of it. It's like it's not leaving a lot of room, and these will sit really high if that's the case. Now I do need to build out some of this stuff anyway, so I'll probably fill in this space with some styrene forms and whatnot. So we'll see. But either way, I need a better way to mount this stuff to the back here before I can move forward, because if it's not on there in a permanent way, anything I add styrene wise and modeling and stuff like that, I'm gonna have to glue it on. It might be a little fragile. I'm gonna risk really bumping it all and screwing it up if I don't have this thing in a state where it's like ready to go. So I'm playing with a couple of different things. There is this piece of the BVS Batmobile. This is actually the back top. So like this is where Batman would sit, essentially. Like this is where his back would rest. If I flip this way, it actually matches up like pretty nicely right here. So there's a possibility there, but I don't know yet. I would either have to cut this piece off, or this actual like plastic bottle thing that I made to be housing for the turbine engine kind of fits on it well. And so it could maybe sit like this or like that. So I don't know. I mean, God, 90% of this process is just matching pieces up, going, oh, this might work. Okay. Drill a hole, put a thing, and then I find out, nope, actually doesn't work, and I've spent like an entire day doing it. So it's a very frustrating thing that I've set myself up for here, and hopefully I can pull something off. The other bit that I found to work with is this. Now this is, actually I'll show you what it looked like from this BVS Batmobile again. This is the same rod that holds the wheels on, right? So I've got two to work with if I need, but I think I can take this one, cut it in half, and then I've got this like sort of bracket cylinder thing that I took from this guy. This held on, I think, the front wheels. I drilled this hole all the way through so that it comes out through here. So what I might do is stick these through here and then mount the Swamper wheels on them. And then they've got this nice toothy bit at the end to hold on this plastic cap. And that may be what I end up getting to use to hold these on, because these didn't come with any hardware, and I feel like they should have, and I feel like that just keeps happening to me when I buy stuff it doesn't have. Like if you watch my the Batman McFarlane customization video, I got this Bendy Figs figure to use, and he didn't come with a drop holster. So I don't know, it just keeps happening to me. Anyway, so I've got these little nuts from this Mezco figure stand, and so I took one, and I think it'll fit on here, and hopefully these teeth help hold it on. So if I can do that, then I might be in business, because previously I was trying to use these little wooden dowels because it's the only thing I have that'll fit in this tiny little hole, and I can kind of get the nut on the end of this, but it won't hold super well, and it's just real tentative, and it just didn't feel like a good permanent solution. Plus these are super flimsy because they're so small, and putting two of these on and trying to stick it in and hold the weight on just wasn't working. So I've got my work cut out for me here. I'm real tired of the smell of this rubber. If you've ever been to like a tire place, get tires on your vehicle, or if you've worked in one or whatever, you know the smell I'm talking about. So that's where this is at, and I'm just going to keep plugging away at it and see what else I can make work. Ha! This might be the first major win I've had on this project yet, so I'm pretty excited. I got this mounted. I used that piece I was talking about. I took a hacksaw, cut that metal rod in half, and then stuck it through these drilled parts. And then I had these little sort of like thick washer pieces. came with these little spring shocks that I got online that I mentioned. They're like kind of a little sleeve that goes in those openings. I was able to use them to hold on to these toothy parts of the metal rods to hold them in place. And then there's enough tension around this metal rod in the holes that I drilled that they're just staying in place. So I don't have to do that extra screw in there that I mentioned to try to hold them on. And then, so the moment of truth was me lifting this, rolling them under, and they're the perfect width. So I'm pretty excited about this step. Now I just have to figure out some kind of assembly to hold this on. It's going to have to sit about this high. Let's turn this on its side. Okay, so I just wanted to switch up the angle here. So this is it from the side view. Now this is kind of resting in a funny way, but yeah, if I can get that up like that, then we're going to be in business. And that is starting to look more and more like the Tumbler. So here's where we're at. I've got the back wheels on. I've got the back wheels and little axle assembly pretty much attached. This isn't like bolted down or anything yet, but it will be. I'm still finding ways to complete this whole part of the setup. I am using the bottom of that BVS Batmobile, and you can see in here where I've got it connected via like an L bracket. You know, it's not a full interior, as you can see, but it gives the illusion of one. I think enough to the point where if I put some tinted windows in here, I think it'll actually give the desired effect. Now, keep in mind, this is still just the black plastic, so I haven't actually hit this with a black paint yet. Does it come in black? That'll come once I finish all the body work, but I trimmed these, as you saw earlier, and that's giving it more of a Tumbler profile. I think the height is pretty good on the back. This is a little wonky here where this almost touches, but, you know, again, I'm just trying to get it as close as I can. It's not going to be perfect. I just want it to look good on the shelf, and I think it will if it's got a little bit of that. I'm going to build out a piece here, so it's going to have that little flap that we've talked about before. So that's going to fill in this gap a bit more, and I think just look more accurate. But this thing is really starting to look like it should. Now on the back here, I've got this is a bottleneck from like some coffee creamer that was just about the right size to use as the little jet engine. This is another piece of a different bottle. This is like some toilet bowl cleaner. And previously, before I trimmed this centerpiece down, it actually sat flush with this, and it was like a nice, you know, kind of single unit. But because I've had to make some changes to the back here, it's looking different. I think it looks cool to have the look of the Tumbler, you know, because the Tumbler does have this kind of swooping piece on around the turbine. But these are sitting pretty much exactly how I want them to. There's enough clearance in here. There is enough width here to where it's coming out just about right. And I've got these pretty solidly on there now. So yeah, once I get this part actually connected or figure out how I'm going to connect all of this, then I get to do the fun stuff, the body work. I get to make the little struts and shocks. I get to, you know, paint. I got to sand out these windows here. You know, make some flaps that stick out a little bit more for the spoilers. And then the little kind of framework pieces that connect them. So yeah, still a lot to be done, but it feels good to finally have the hardest part figured out. And now we're on to the fun stuff. So that's where it's at now. This is going to conclude part 2. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you have any ideas for any of the stuff I've talked about that I'm like, oh, I don't know how to do this. And you guys, you know, if you have, oh, you know what I tried once or something, you know, throw that in the comments. Every little bit helps. Please check out the trailer for Retroactive, my upcoming graphic novel that comes out on April 26th in bookstores, 27th in comic shops. If you go to retroactivecomic.com, you can see the trailer for that and click a link to pre-order or purchase. And until next time, keep your head on swivel.